Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Language of Spirit show. I'm your host, Andrew Fritz, and today we have another special guest with us. Maura McCartney is a globally recognized professional intuitive, clairvoyant, psychic reader, psychic teacher. Maura has performed professional psychic readings and has taught psychic workshops, classes, and specialized psychic trainings to people in person and also remotely all over the world. She has served as a spiritual teacher, supporter, mentor for over 17 years. Mara's unique approach and deep compassion allows for participants and students to empower themselves with daily meditations, psychic exercises, energy tools, knowledge, and insights that support their own sacred awareness, spiritual growth, and inner development. So, Mara, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
Hey, you're welcome. My pleasure to have you. So this is a question I like to kick it off with most of my guests. Just always curious to see, when and how they got into spirituality. So what did that look like for you?
Well, I was always very sensitive as a child, and I very early on sensed that I was a little bit different than everyone else.
Right.
And I had a deep sense of wanting to find others to relate to, where I could kind of share some of the experiences that I was having. I kind of put it as I always felt like I had one foot in each realm.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just looking, really seeking to find if something connected to me. And in my early 20s, this is back in the day when you like ordered books, like the old way, filling out
Yeah.
a form. And I received two books, but they weren't the books that I ordered. And one of them was Soul Mates by a well-known psychiatrist, Thomas More, who has a very, his perspective is really not kind of analyzing the mind. He's looking at the spirit of someone. And I was so moved by his perception of viewing trauma or crisis or kind of, midlife crisis. He was so gentle and so neutral. That made the connection for me that there was actually something out there for me. And I would try to find more people like this who read books like this. And so one thing kind of led to another, and mystics just started to show up in my life.
Nice.
They're like, I had an incredible reading with a numerologist that just blew my mind. And then another, she was a mystic. She was a linguistic programmer, but she was very, very psychic. And she kind of pulled me aside and we had a little conversation. And she was really the first person to really see me and acknowledge that I had psychic abilities and that some of the confusion that I was experiencing was really related to these abilities that I had that I didn't understand. And so the mystics kept coming and the teachers kept coming until I found myself at this wonderful psychic school in Chicago where I walked in and felt like I had come home. With the school being full of so many people like me and so many people to talk to and learn and grow our abilities with. That was really transformative for me.
That's awesome. It's so interesting. So interviewing different people, and there's always this kind of this search that it starts with. There's this kind of like prompting, and then like I'm searching for something, don't quite know what it is, but I'm searching, and then they kind of it leads them on their path or guides them on their path.
Yes.
Um, it sounds like some of yours started with the like finding that book. Like it was almost like an accident, but it wasn't an accident kind of thing. And I can
Yeah.
I can relate to that because when I was in Chicago, I was going to art school, and my roommate at the time was Ryan, which I'm pretty sure you know him.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he let me borrow "You're the Answer" by Michael Tomorrow, and that was like before that I was like kind of into astrology or just like I had some weird experiences with being in a haunted house where I grew up, but I wasn't religious or spiritual. So when I read
Right.
that book, that's when I started to wake up. And so it's just interesting how you had a similar experience or beginning at least. So
I always feel like along that search, there's a helping hand and some divine intervention, you know, to start to guide you on your way.
right, yeah. So you've already kind of mentioned it. So you mentioned this the psychic school and vision that was in Chicago.
Yes.
I'm always interested because a lot of people in the world don't really know that these things exist, that there's psychic schools or there's psychic teachers and this energy work. But I'm always fascinated, like what was going on in your life right before you found the school. Like for some people it's different for everybody. Some people, certain things are falling apart, certain things are just coming magically together and clicking. um, I know for me it was kind of a big kind of thing, but is there anything you recall from just like the before leading up to finding that?
Well, it was interesting because I had about 5 years where one mystic after another
Hmm.
was showing up in my life. And I had been about a year before on a retreat in Hawaii with a well-known female psychic.
Hmm.
And that was a really powerful experience for me. It was the first time I was kind of around a group
Hmm.
of other psychic people.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of had a sense like my life was just ending the way it was. Like I
Hmm.
wasn't really happy.
Hmm.
And I was just really in need of some, I guess it would be support. Because
Hmm.
I felt like sort of everything was going to start ending and I was going to be walking into this new world, kind of blinded. And it just so happened that someone that I worked with who was relatively new mentioned to me, "Oh, I'm going to the school and they do, energy healings and they give readings and they have all these programs." And I remember they were having a healing hour and it was like that day I woke up feeling worse than I had felt in like 15 years.
Oh wow.
But I was, yeah. So I just decided to go.
Mm.
And when I walked in, and after I had the healing, in the healing hour, I felt completely transformed. And I couldn't believe how good I felt. And the teacher who was guiding the energy healing was pointing out to me all about energy. And when we're sensitive to energy, we get piled up with all this stuff that doesn't even have anything to do with us, but you can clear it. And that was what happened in the healing. And then I was talking to a few of the other students who were doing clairvoyant training and astral training. And I thought this was the coolest stuff ever. And there were, like 10 psychic teachers walking around. And
Yeah.
I just knew I had found home. And again, it was another connection, that kind of happened by default, if you will, that walked me into this really sacred new beginning in my life.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. And you got kind of that's a good segue into maybe talking about what was it like going through a clairvoyant training? Again, some people don't even know what that is, what that entails. I think that could be in itself a kind of a roller coaster ride of
Right.
healing and discovery. And what was it like that for you? Because I know for me it was definitely up and down and rewarding at the end, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember being terrified in the beginning to join because I thought, who am I? to be able to do this.
Ah,
There was sort of this like, can I really do this? Am I really clairvoyant? And I started the training, the first 6 months of training,
mhm,
and the first class, I was just knew I was in the right place. Um, and it was a bit of a roller coaster because clairvoyance is all about the ability to see energy.
mhm,
And also it has everything to do with perception
mm,
and kind of the vantage point that we're looking from. And it started to help me see that a lot of the lenses I was looking at myself through and through my life experiences were not really, really lenses that had anything to do with me. It might have been
right.
through my parents' view or, people I went to school with or friends. So it really helped me clear um these perceptions, I would say mostly that I had of myself.
Mm,
And it was a bit of a roller coaster. It's really a peeling away at the onion to kind of really open up uh, your senses and how you are in the world and how you experience the world. But
mhm,
I wouldn't change it for anything.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I can relate. My experience was very, very challenging, but like incredibly rewarding throughout that experience. Um, yeah, but also you mentioned kind of these sounds almost like other people's judgments are just kind of in the way, and then you start to peel it away and you go, oh, there I am. I can see myself so much more clearly, and like it's nice to kind of just see myself as I am instead of how others judge me or perceive
It's
me
so
from their
true.
perspective.
I think one of the most important and most valuable things for me was that I was always trying to do the right things, to, have a job and work really hard and be successful and be a good mentor to others. And um, I was so miserable.
Mhm,
And going through the clairvoyant training really helped me understand that, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that, but it really wasn't my vision. It wasn't really
mhm,
what I valued or really a true expression of who I was. It was more of what was expected of me
mhm,
or what society or family or whatever thought was the path that I should take.
mhm.
And the clairvoyant training really helped me see what I wanted.
Right. Yeah, I think that's huge because there's sometimes for people out in the world that are just like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do or what I want to do or what is my dream or what's my purpose, and just being able to like start to like, oh, I see it now. It's clear. Now it begins the process of, okay, can I act on this? Can I
Right.
follow through? And that's a whole other part of the journey.
That's a whole another step of it. That was part two of clairvoyant training, trying to
Yeah.
make it real,
Yeah.
and move past a lot of the judgment and people raising their eyebrows, like, "What are you doing? You're ruining your life. You're taking it in this direction. You're crazy."
Yep.
But actually, it really it saved my life
Mm,
in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Um, mhm.
I can agree with that. For myself, I relate to that. Um, so, was there any other things that you've done in addition to the clairvoyant training? I think you mentioned something like astral training. I don't know if that's something you did or anything
Yes, I
else.
did astral training. I did the spiritual autonomy training, which is so
Okay,
powerful.
right,
There was a women's training and then a woman's spirit training.
nice.
Eventually, I went through the teacher's training and I was blessed to have the opportunity to teach
Mhm.
at the school. And one of my favorite things that I taught was women's training.
Ah,
That was really powerful for me.
mhm,
Um, but even the some of the initial classes like meditation and energy healing, that's where all the magic begins.
right.
And I treasured every moment of it. I
Mm,
really, I really did.
yeah. Um, So I've had a lot of people on that are really into and I know a lot of the audience are probably really into like lucid dreaming, some of the astral
Mhm.
travel stuff.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the experiences you had just in the astral training, just like what the healings were like, or just anything you want to share about it?
Sure. I think the primary thing that I would want to convey about the astral training was how validating it was to know that as much as we are active in our physical human experience, we are active in our astral experience, and that it's such a rich part of the experience that we can have that can really bring healing and clarity to our everyday life.
Mm.
Um, People who would come in for astral trainings or astral healings who weren't really sure what it was, but they had a sense that they weren't getting out, they weren't dreaming at night, their sleep was
Uh,
really disrupted, would come in and have these astral healings and really have visceral experiences even during the healings.
mhm.
They could sense a lot of energy was moving, and I'd get emails and phone calls and saying, "Oh my God, I don't really know what happened during that astral healing, but I feel so cleansed. I feel so free."
Mm.
Um, so a lot of us work in our astral, but there's really nothing to validate what we're doing there or how we can help ourselves by visiting
Got it.
the astral.
Yeah, yeah, it's always a fun topic.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you did a teacher training. You were there. You taught a women's training. Um, what has it been like your journey as a teacher? I mean, I guess maybe I can kind of pull back a little bit. Was there a certain time you knew you wanted to teach? Was it like when did you know that for yourself? You're like, you know what, I want to teach this stuff.
Yes, I remember very specifically. It was in sort of a meltdown in clairvoyant training. And I was talking with the owner and director of the school.
Mhm.
He kind of pulled me aside. He knew I was having a bit of a rough time. And he said something to me. He said, "You know, you can do what I do.
Mm.
You can teach other people, you can do what I do." And that blew my mind.
Uh,
That he would say that to me and that he could see that in me. But there was something inside of me that knew that,
mm,
that felt that that was a path for me. So
right.
it was kind of like I got this permission and this validation by this wonderful, teacher of mine, um, who said those words to me. So um, I went through the teacher's training, and one of the greatest things was just witnessing new people coming in,
Mm,
um, and being able to see the transformation and the visceral experiences that people were having. People coming in with depression or
mm,
anxiety or feeling isolated, or lost, and they're starting to learn all these tools of self care and bringing their focus back to themselves. And just in like one class,
right. Yeah.
2 hours, they would be like, "Oh my God, like, I can't believe I feel so good," or I feel like a sense of taking control back of
Mm,
how I feel. So I just couldn't wait to teach anything they allowed me to teach.
yeah.
But it's, as a teacher, you're also going through, um, you know, kind of, you're working through the energy as a teacher. So
Right.
it's not all, roses and sunshine, but it's all really worth it because it really helped me see kind of areas where I wasn't being honest with myself,
Mm,
or I was operating from maybe a place of invalidation, or um, where I didn't quite feel aligned with myself. So
mm,
every bump was a gift because there was always something beautiful behind it.
right. So you mentioned that being aligned to yourself. Um, and do you find that in your journey as a, psychic spiritual teacher, that sure, like when you're as a student, you're working on getting in alignment with, say, like that higher aspect of your being. But did you
Right.
notice that kind of ramped up even more when you go to in your journey teaching, like really strengthening that connection with that higher part of you, where you're like, oh, now I'm starting to like get more of my information. I can convey that to people and help others.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you're asking this question because that's where it really connected for me. And then I kind of realized all this that I'm doing in, honing these psychic abilities, which I always say psychic abilities are the way your higher self,
Mm,
your spirit communicates with you, just like your body communicates through taste and scent, smell and hearing.
mhm,
Language of the spirit is through
mm,
gut feelings and intuition. And that's when it connected for me about, oh, what am I really doing here? I was building a relationship
mhm,
with that higher part of me, the part that said, hey, let's go have this life in the 20th century. I was
mhm.
born in the 20th century, you know, get into this body, have these parents, live in this city, and we're off to the races for a human experience.
Right.
And it was the first time that I felt like, wait a minute, there really is, I really do have something watching over me, and that's me. Like there's
Right.
this higher, you know, uh, essence, this higher being that created me, that is a part of me, that wants to engage and participate in my life.
Mhm,
And everything I do at Psychic Sensibility
mhm,
is built around that,
mm.
forging that bond and that communication.
Ah, that's awesome. Um, yeah, well, might as well just get into that now. Can you tell us more about psychic sensibility? People that are listening that are like, "Hey, I want that. I want that. I want to get aligned with my higher self. That sounds great."
Yeah, I
Um,
want some help down here.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure. So, I had been working as a professional psychic for many years, and most of my work was reading clients. I would also work with people on a one-on-one basis, depending on what they were looking for. However, when COVID-19 hit, um, just the calls started coming in off the charts. A lot of people were super excited that they had an opportunity to decompress
Right.
and kind of reset their life,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then there were other people who were in total fear because there was this realization that there's very little that we actually have control of.
Right.
Um, and we're looking for some solace and some safety. And that's when my clients would say, well, I'm so glad I talked to you, but like, what can I do for myself? When we're not talking,
Mm,
so I started to create mini classrooms and meditations on a platform where people could come join in, and learn some basic tools just to help them get centered, and sort of find themselves in the eye of the storm instead of whirling around in all the chaos of COVID-19.
right.
And to get back home, um, where they could find a sense of well being again, even though everything outside of them was upside down.
Right.
So that's where it started. Thanks, COVID-19. I
Yeah.
was one of the people who, like, I know there was a lot of trauma and loss, but
Sure.
it was definitely making lemonade out of lemons for me.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that. You mentioned, so we can get back to more with your
Yeah.
business. But you
Yes.
mentioned the hurricane kind of analogy metaphor, like the eye of the hurricane.
Yes.
Which when I see that image, that's reminds me of like neutrality, finding neutrality and kind of stepping out of that chaos that you're mentioning that's happening. It's always out there in the world. Um, is there anything you want to share about what is neutrality, or just your experiences with neutrality. I know I've had many times where I was not neutral at all, and that usually bit me in the butt. And other times where I was able to be kind of centered or neutral and just observe and go, oh, I can just let it be.
I like to think of neutrality as the third alternative.
Ah,
You're not fighting an energy, you're not indifferent to an energy, you're just stepping back and
mm,
observing an energy. And that was my analogy about, being in the eye of the storm, with everything going upside down around you. What I refer to as, neutrality allows you to see the energy that's out there, but it doesn't have to be in here. It doesn't have to be with you. It offers you a perspective of the great observer.
ah,
I like to call it the curious observer,
mm,
sort of the reporter in the field, where you're just taking notes on everything that you're seeing and even of your own reactions. Like, I notice I'm freaking out. You're not in judgment of the
yeah,
fact that you're freaking out. You're
right.
just taking note of what's going on. And that neutrality, that third alternative, allows us to not have to pick a side
Mm,
or have it, have to emotionally invest or mentally invest in what's happening around us. It allows us to just step back and be the what I like to call the curious observer.
I like
And
that.
that has saved my life more than once. Believe me, I hit the energy like anyone else when you're in chaotic traffic or someone cuts you off, or and it's like, and then just being able to step back and be like, there's a lot of stressed out people around me. They have their own personal problems, but I don't have to take it on. So when I get out of my car, I don't want to be where they are. I'm glad I'm not.
Right. Yeah. I think that's huge. I like bringing that to light because that's really powerful. I like that kind of that phrase you use, the curious observer. Um, but yeah, it is very easy to just get caught up into whatever emotional reactions taking place, and then you kind of fuel the fire, and it seems to kind of just snowball into something worse.
Right, right. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times, like before I really did any of this training, I didn't really know that I had a choice.
Ah, right.
You know what I mean? I didn't know the concept of neutrality. I didn't know the concept of like being able to see everything, but not having to be, one of the judges at the table
Right.
putting a label on it. I never knew that I could just step back and watch it. And by doing that, so we see so much more. I think when we tend to react instead of choose to respond, we're sort of inviting in anything that is chaotic or that we're already resisting, and it becomes so cloudy that we really don't even see what we're looking at, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Um, this is a great topic because we're mentioning like things like neutrality, like that's something that you've learned in your trainings, and that's something that sounds like kind of you're weaving into your everyday life, which is massive. Can you talk more about that, like bringing what you're learning as you've learned as a student, as a teacher, and bringing that just in your everyday life, maybe other things in addition to neutrality, or you're just like, oh, I'm really, whether it's psychic tools or your intuition of like, wow, I'm using this just in regular life, regular situations now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm reaching on all my tools. The greatest tool is a sense of permission that I give myself to not have everything all figured out.
Uh,
Um, if something is stimulated or I'm angry or I'm frustrated, I have kind of developed where before I was very reactive. And that always like kicked me back into the past and brought forward in my reaction a lot of like anything that was ever attached to that emotional charge. So now I choose to respond, which gives me the permission to say, hey, yeah, you're really pissed. So awesome. Let's just take a second to like cool down, walk away from it for a while, give your body a chance to, catch up and take a breath. And then I make this space to just honor, like, wow, I really was upset by that. So what was that all about? Like, it
Right.
really has allowed me to make a space to give myself permission and to also trust. Like, if I got really upset about something, that there was a great deal of value that my body was communicating with me that something wasn't right.
Right.
So I hope that answers your question. It gives me all my tools give me permission and space to listen to my body, listen to my emotions, and then also listen to the guidance that I'm getting in that situation from that higher part of me. And it does happen.
Right.
And sometimes it surprises me, like, hey, have you lost your amusement about this?
Right.
Or just it just all weaves into making it more about me and how I'm doing than whatever's creating the upset.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that alone right there is huge. To be able to bring that and work on that in everyday life.
It's stabilizing.
Yeah, I mean,
We
just
all get knocked off our rock every now and then,
yeah,
get knocked off our foundation. And for me, the saving grace is having a way to get back and then make decisions from there.
right. Yeah, that pause and being able to choose how you respond. That's so massive. That's awesome. I'm glad that you brought that up. So I'd like to get back to psychic sensibility. What are some of the other things that you're offering? And I can even vouch for you because I believe it just hit me when we're talking here. I think we were in the spiritual autonomy training
We
together
were.
around the yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, I think
You're
I was.
right.
Yeah, so I was like, we had to read with each other before, so
Yeah,
I got it. We've exchanged readings, so yeah, I can vouch for you for sure. To people to book a reading with you for sure. But yeah, what do you offer, and how do people reach you?
sure.
Yeah.
So I'll start by saying, the platform is psychic, the word sense,
Mhm.
and the word ability.
Got it.
Not ability, but ability. So three different words. You can find psychic sensibility. You can Google us. You can go on Instagram, Facebook. We're there.
Okay.
Um, the platform, I really work with several levels of people, meaning that I have people who will reach out to me and say, I'm on a spiritual journey, I think, and I don't know where to start. And I've never had a psychic reading. I don't even know what psychic means.
Mm.
What direction would you point me in?
Ah.
So for people who are wanting to put their toe in the water, I offer every month, I usually do pop-up like candlelight meditations, just a 30-minute evening meditation. That's a great way to get started. I also do mini little 30-minute classrooms,
Mm,
excuse me, on a variety of different psychic subjects,
mm,
where most of it is Q&A, where people are just asking me questions about what they're going through or experiences they're having. And usually in a mini class, I offer a psychic tool that they can kind of work as a little homework,
mm,
through the week. I do different workshops that are, I don't want to call them advanced, but they're for people who have been, have attended several of the meditations, who have had readings with me, who have done some of the deeper workshops where we're working with psychic tools and things of that nature.
Hmm,
So there's really something for everybody.
nice.
And I post usually 2 months in advance. I'm really reworking a lot of what's going to be happening this summer.
Hmm,
Um, I'll be offering a lot more uh,
ah,
pop-up like meditations or a pop-up reading hour or pop-up psychic tool class. It's just a nice way for people to kind of come in and give it a try or brush up on some of their tools
hmm.
that they learned many years ago.
Yeah, I know how that is. So and then some of the things we were talking about before, like things like how to get neutral or kind of working towards the pause and being able to like, okay, how do I want to respond to what's happening right here?
Right.
Um, is there in one of those pop-ups, those meetings or workshops, do you teach anything that might be related to people that are like, hey, I really want to work on that? Do you offer something with that?
Absolutely. And that's some of the material I'm working on now that I'll be posting. It'll be posted probably by the weekend. But
Okay.
one of them is the third alternative, and it's all about, you know, not having to choose either or, but and also by
Uh,
standing back and being able to. So it's more just a conversation about the options. We live in such a black and white society. It's good or bad or right or wrong. And I would say, well, that's out the window for me. My world is in the middle. And there's all different shades of gray and white. And there's so much there to have without confining yourself to one side or the other.
right.
So, yeah, so definitely be one on neutrality, which I call the third alternative. And there's also, I'm going to be doing a lot about healing in your dreams.
Oh, wow.
That's going to be a 30-minute like intro mini workshop. And
Nice.
we'll be doing a little healing work to kind of clear out your dream space
Hmm.
so you can start getting out
Right.
in the astral, and I'll be available to answer questions. So it's a lot more of that where I'm giving people really a chance to interact with me
Mm,
and ask their questions.
nice.
Um,
Yeah. No, that sounds great because that's I'm sure, especially people that are on the beginning of the path, are going to have a zillion questions. So having that opportunity to speak with you and just say, "Hey, what's this or that?" I'm I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the beautiful thing about working on an internet, internet platform or a online platform is I have people that participate from all over the country, a lot of people in Canada,
Oh,
few
cool.
people in Europe, but it's such a healing to be able to do something like this for 30 minutes to an hour to 90 minutes, whatever the workshop is, and to know that there's people in another state, in another city who are going through and having similar experiences as you are. And then have a place where we all come together and can talk freely in a really safe place. Um, and take steps together. I have gotten more feedback about, oh, it's so rewarding. Like, are you going to have something where I can see this person again or that person again? And
Ah, right.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
really a global community.
yeah, I was just gonna say that community. That's like because the school we went to together in Chicago, Envision, that like that was something I've always missed, like that kind of community in person. And then with COVID, that really shifted things where everything has kind of transitioned online, but still being
Right.
able to have a community. It sounds kind of fun to be like, wow, there's someone in Europe or Canada or this part of the states, and they can all get together and hey, I saw you last time. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, and I've had a few students who part of why they're on this, what's kind of provoking them to look in the direction of the spiritual journey is the isolation factor.
Yeah.
So this is a great way, to jump on, and even if you get your, foot wet with 30 minutes of a interactive conversation,
Mhm.
it's really a way to be a part of something.
Right. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Um, so I like to, always give my guests the opportunity if there is a topic that I didn't touch upon or question I didn't ask that you really want to explore or talk about. If there's not one, that's not a problem, but just like to give you the opportunity, just, hey, there's this thing I want to talk about we missed. This would be a good time for
Yeah.
that.
Well, what I would like to open up is psychic readings.
Okay.
Um, it's one of my favorite things to do. And a lot of people are like, what exactly happens in a psychic reading?
Yeah, yeah.
And someone like me or like Andrew, who have developed and nurtured their psychic ability is able, to read your energy. And our personal space, our aura, that we all have around us is full of information. Some about us. Sometimes it's full about stuff about your partner or your job or whatever experiences you're going through. So a segue, I would say, to kind of taking a step in your spiritual journey is to have a psychic reading. So we can look at the energy, the bumps that you're hitting in your life. One of the biggest themes is relationship stuff. People say, I'm going through the same thing over and over, in my relationship. It's a different woman, but it's the same stuff, or it's a different guy, but it's the same, what is going on? So I'm able to go in and look at cycles and patterns. And also many people kind of partner up through wounds instead of
Uh,
a place of validation.
oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So much of this puzzling, mysterious energy that's been around, I would say number one, a relationship space,
Mm.
really can come into a clear view. You'll get a lot more clarity and insight on sort of what's going on. And then from there, you have a lot of information to move forward with. Career stuff, so I tell people, if you don't really know where to start with the reading from a psychic. And I offer different, you don't have to have an hour reading. I offer different price points. You can, do a 30-minute reading, 45 minutes, an hour. But that to me is really what kind of stimulates kind of the next steps
Right.
for my clients.
Yeah. Would you say that, yeah, I think that's very accurate. It always seems to be like a starting point and it kind of leads them on to their next step with that, whatever that might be. We earlier were talking about that ability to kind of like pause and kind of, how they choose to respond in whatever situation's happening.
Mhm.
If people that are listening, they want to get a reading with you. Um, you're reading different things, whether it's health or relationships, money, career, whatever it is. You think that would give people an option or the ability to kind of hear or be able to see what you're kind of taking a look at and go, oh, wait a second, I didn't know that, and maybe I can choose to do something different now. Is that something you've encountered or?
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Or people will see that they're trapped, in a cycle, but they don't understand why. And when I read it, I'm reading it from a place of non-judgment. I'm just a reporter in the field reporting back what I'm reading. And suddenly it becomes so much clearer. It reminds me of, there was a time that I lived on right off of Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, and I was
Oh.
way up in the high rise on the
Mhm.
17th floor. And I share this with my students all the time.
Mhm.
And Chicago in the winter is like insanity with the snow and
Yeah.
everything. And I remember being way up and hearing like an accident on Lakeshore Drive. So I ran to the window and I looked down, and everybody was out of their cars. People were, it was a morning accident. Everybody was running late from work and for work, and there was
Mhm.
all this chaos below me, and here I was just looking at it all.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just helped me really connect with the fact that you can get up out of the energy and look down and see the bigger picture. And it doesn't have to be so personal. A lot of times we feel our only choice is to be in the energy, um, and be responsible for it, either clearing it or healing it, when we have this opportunity to just like either get up on the ceiling and look down, or step back as a reporter and just acknowledge what we're seeing without having to do anything about it. I hope that makes sense.
No, that's a yeah, I can see that clearly. That's a great example that you use that. 'Cause, yeah, being up at the very top and just, well, it's all down there. I see it clearly. I don't have to engage in this. I'm fine right here. Yeah,
Right,
it's warm
right.
here and it's not chaotic here, so I'm good. Yeah, I get that. Cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave your bio and your link to your website, include your Instagram or social media in the kind of description below.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, this is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Google. So we'll have those links available for people that are like, oh, I want to get a reading from Mara, or I want to connect more with my higher self. They can do that. So, but yeah, I just want to say it's been awesome to be able to have an opportunity to talk with you again, and have you on the show, and just it's fun to talk about these different topics. So,
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's been absolutely wonderful. Great
absolutely,
to talk with you again, Andrew.
yeah, you as well.